Chapter 2. I never went back home. I called my mom the next morning to tell her that I was staying in Franklin. I had an elaborate lie cooked up. Something about being hired as a paralegal and working on a big case action lawsuit involving toxic waste. But she didn't even really care. What do you want me to do with all your stuff? With your stuff, was all she asked. I don't really have stuff. Nothing that I needed. There were some magazines that I had stolen from the grocery store, this one t-shirt that I really liked, a pair of basketball shoes that I'd saved up for 6 months to buy and wore only when I played pickup games at the YMCA, but Madison had said they'd buy me anything I wanted. Just keep it there, I said. Maybe I'll come get it later. Yeah, I'm staying with her, I told her. She's always been good to you for some reason, she said, like she was dumbfounded by unnecessary kindness. Well, I did a good thing for her. I told her heating up ready for a fight. Ancient history, she said. I'm actually going to be the governess, I told her suddenly. Okay then, she said, and she hung up before I could explain what that was. Madison was downstairs in the breakfast nook, a smooth leather bench that curved all the way around the table. There was a huge bay window, and I could see squirrels hopping around the lawn, scavenging for nuts. It took me a second to realize that Timothy was there, holding a sterling silver fork that fit perfectly in his little hand. I tried to remember how old he was. 3, 4? No, 3. He was beautiful, but it was a different kind of beauty than what Madison possessed. On Timothy, it was unnatural, cartoonish. His eyes were so large that they seemed to take up 75% of his face, like a collectible figurine in some old lady's house. He was wearing pajamas that were red and patterned with insignia of Tennessee state flag. Hello, I said to him, but he kept staring at me. He didn't seem shy. He just couldn't figure out whether I was someone he should talk to. Say hi to Lillian, Madison finally said. She was eating cottage cheese topped with blueberries. Hello, Timothy said, but he immediately turned back to his scrambled eggs. He was done with me. Do you want coffee? Madison asked. Like I was one of her children. Like this wasn't the first time in a year that we've even seen each other. I was startled when some lady appeared right behind me, holding a pot of steaming coffee. She was Asian, very small, age intermediate. This is Mary, Madison said. I can make anything you want, the woman said, her accent possibly British, or maybe she was just elegant that and felt European. It wasn't Southern, that's all I knew. She wasn't smiling, but maybe she was supposed to smile. I kind of wish she were smiling. It would make it easier for to ask her for a giant bacon sandwich. Just coffee is fine, I said, and Mary poured me a cup and then returned to the kitchen. I wondered how many people were employed by Jasper Roberts. Was it 10? Or maybe 50? Or was it 100 or more? Any of these seemed believable. Just then, as if encouraged by my curiosity, a man wearing suspenders with a big floppy hat walked across the backyard. He was holding a rake, like a soldier marching with a rifle. How many servants do you have? I asked Madison, who was stiffened. I couldn't tell if I was doing this on purpose, trying to make her feel bad about being so filthy rich. More than we probably need, she finally said. But they're not servants. They're employees. It's like running a cruise ship or something like that. It's just not a place that this big has a lot of things that have to get done and a lot of people who have specific abilities. But I knew all their names. I keep track of them. And now you have me, I said. You're not an employee, she said cheerfully. You're my friend who's helping me out. I drank the coffee, and it was really good. The taste so complex that it made me realize that I was going to have to get rid of my expectations of how things work. I used to break I used the break room coffee so thin that I had to dump a pound of sugar into it just to make it taste like something. The pizza we'd eaten the night before had been so fresh that I could taste the tomatoes in the sauce. The crust had been just slightly charred. I was finally after I was finally after 28 years of experiencing things that the way they had been intended, no more Knopf. What do you what do you have to do today? I asked Madison, and then I added, what do I have to do today? Which was more important to me. You can just relax. You can just take a walk and get familiar with the grounds. This afternoon, we'll go to Nashville and buy some clothes and necessities. Oh, and Jasper is going to be home this evening. He's flying back from D.C. I wanted him to meet you. How often is he around here? I asked. Less than you'd think, she said. He has a lot of work in Washington, but he has an apartment there. But I see him enough. He's big on family, you know. I didn't know that at all. After all, the whole reason that I was here to take care of his crematories as good as orphaned kids. Then I realized that this was just Madison going over talking points. She had a faraway look in her eyes. I knew that over time she'd forgotten herself, and I learned what's wrong with Senator Roberts. I could wait. I'm going to take Timothy to daycare, and then I come back. We'll go explore. Sounds good? She offered. That's cool, I said. I wanted another cup of coffee, but didn't know if it was impolite to go and get it myself. Or was it worse to call for Mary to refill my cup? I knew that whatever I chose would be the wrong thing. I knew that until I truly believed that whatever I did was exactly the right thing. I'd keep the wrong thing. Say goodbye to Lillian, Madison instructed Timothy. The boy dabbled at his little mouth with a napkin, the most daintiest and infuriating thing I've ever seen in my life. Only then did he look at me and say, Goodbye. Goodbye, Tim, I said, hoping that the boy would be annoyed by this abbreviation of his name. And already I was fucking up. I needed to get Timothy to like me, or I needed to learn how to like him. He was practicing until the twins arrived. He was one of my shot to figure out how to talk to, how to behave around to tolerate a child. I tried to think of the times when I had willingly interacted with children. One time, some little kid had gotten lost in the aisle of the Save-A-Lot. I was changing the price on some cereal boxes, and I suddenly noticed her, like a ghost had materialized just for me. She was doing the thing where eyes were real wide, and she put every bit of an effort into trying not to cry. I cautiously held my hand. She took it easily, without question, and she walked in silence through the store until we reached the last aisle, as her dumbass fucking mother was standing in the freezer section looking at lean cuisines. No clue her daughter had almost been abducted. Before I could mutter some real passive-aggressive stuff to the mom, the girl simply squeezed my hand, so I looked down at her. Then she kissed the top of my hand, slid out of my grasp, and ran to her mother, leaving me there for a few seconds. I wanted to scoop out the little girl and keep her. I opened the freezer door, some popsicles, and held my hand in the cold until I felt normal again, until the girl and her mother had moved out of sight. I was so out of it, I just ended up stealing an entire country ham at the end of my shift just to take my mind off that girl for the next few weeks. I kept hoping she'd return, but I never saw her again. Maybe that's what children were, a desperate need that opened you up even if you didn't want it. I stayed at the table, even after Madison and her son had left the room. I noticed that Madison hadn't eaten much of the cottage cheese, so I reached over and pulled the bowl to me just as I took my first bite. Mary reappeared, teleported probably, and was refilling my coffee cup. I could have made you some food, she asked. You only have to ask. Oh, well, I just thought I'd eat this, like I didn't want it to go to waste. Scraps, Mary said. I couldn't tell if Mary was sympathizing with me or making fun of me. If I wasn't sure, I would generally just assume that someone was making fun of me. But I couldn't punch her, not yet, and not until I learned how essential she was to the whole operation. And then I could take a sip of that amazing coffee, and I relaxed. This is luxury, I told myself. Don't fuck it up by punching the help and getting your ass kicked out of the paradise. Could I have a bacon sandwich? I asked Mary. She nodded and effortlessly reached around and me and removed the bowl of cottage cheese and blueberries. I took my coffee and walked behind Mary to the kitchen. I'll bring it to you, she said, looking over her shoulder. I'll come with you, I told her. I felt weird at the table by myself. She opened the refrigerator that was as big as a car and removed a huge package of bacon. She slapped so many strips in a pan it must have been a pound. Without ever looking at me, she sliced a loaf of bread and put the two pieces in a toaster that looked like both the 50s in the future. How long have you been working for Madison? I asked Mary. She didn't respond until the toast popped up. I've worked for Jasper Roberts for 11 years. Do you like it? I asked. Do I like the work? She asked, frowning. There was an edge to her, but I understood why. Every time the supermarket hired some new doofles, all I wanted to know was how much extra work I was going to have to do to make up for what they didn't know. How many of their fuck ups might blow back on me, but I didn't win Mary over. My fuck-ups affected only me. She'd be safe. I mean, is it okay here? It's work. It's fine. Senator Roberts is a nice enough man. She placed the bacon on the paper towel to collect the grease. What do you want on your bread? Anything? Mayonnaise? I asked. When the sandwich was prepared, she placed it on the plate that looked like you'd use at a wedding, like it would break if you breathed on it. Can I eat it at the counter? I asked, and Mary shrugged. Of course, of course. It was the best sandwich I've ever eaten. I first thought it was just because someone had made it for me, but my mom had made some sorry sandwiches for me in my life. So maybe it was at the atmosphere. I tried not to overthink it. This is so good, I told Mary, who just nodded. I ate it in 3 bites and then looked at the plate, unsure what to do with it. Mary took it and washed it right in front of me. I let it happen. How easy it was, I guess. So, you were when Miss Roberts was married to his second wife? I asked Mary. Yes, of course, she said. What were the kids like? I asked. Well, what are kids like? She replied. They are kids, wild, like Timothy, I asked, and I thought I almost made her smile. No, not like Timothy, she said. Her posture relaxed as she tried to explain. Wild in a good way. Sweet, wild kids. They would make a mess, but I didn't mind cleaning it up. I'm going to take care of them, I said. I know, she said, but I wasn't entirely sure that she already knew this. She was good. She'd been doing this a while. Madison is my friend, I said. So stupid. And Mary knew it was stupid because she didn't dignify it with a repose. Thank you for the sandwich, I said, it and she turned it to the exact direction of working that was waiting for her. I walked around the house, checking all the rooms, just getting used to the sensation of my body being inside this mansion, this estate. I tried to guess what each room was for, what distinguished it from another room. The floor of the hall was made of marble, and I hated the way it felt on my soccer feet. But the rooms, all the beautiful hardwood floors and the giant rugs form I didn't know the Civil War times. There was a game room, but that wasn't the right word. I remembered the board game, Clue, the billiard room. There was a pool in the middle of the pinball room, against the wall. Against one wall, a chessboard with two cushy chairs on either side. There was a bar in the corner with all manners of dusty liquors. I reached into one of the pockets of the pool table, removed a ball, and hid it in an empty ice bucket. I pushed the start button in the pinball game Monster Bash, and it lit up, no quarters required. I immediately slammed the side of the machine, and the word tilt appeared at the game went dead. I took the white queen from the chessboard and was going to take it with me, but I got sheepish and put it back. I went back to my own room to get my shoes so I could walk around the house. There was a woman in the room, and she was making up the bed. I instantly felt guilty that I didn't hadn't done it after I woke up. Hey, I said, and she started, but then startled, but then relaxed. Hello, ma'am, she said. Thank you for making my bed, I told her, but she looked embarrassed. I grabbed my shoes and hustled out of there. I still hadn't brushed my hair or my teeth. I hadn't bought anything with me. I knew that if I asked for a hairbrush would appear, a toothbrush, and 4 kinds of toothpaste, but I tried to pretend it was I was self-sufficient. A lot of times when I think I'm being self-sufficient, I'm really learning to live without the things that I need. I follow a stone path to the guest house where I'd be living with the kids. It was so two-story wooden house, white and with dark red shutters. The door didn't even have a lock on it. I walked right in. The walls were painted orange with yellow polka dots on the white background. The floor was made of kind of spongy material, bright blue. There was a lot of beanbag chairs, primary school furniture with the whole place felt like Sesame Street mixed with a mental health facility. But it wasn't bad. It was clean. Someone had designed the specific experiment, but inviting enough that I could live in there was so much space that I thought I'd have a place to hide when I felt like strangling the kids. When I looked up, I saw an unbelievable, complicated sprinkler system and blinking red lights from the smoke detectors. I wondered if the house had been stuffed full of asbestos. How did one prepare a house for possibility of fire children? Do you like it? Someone behind me suddenly said. Fuck, I shouted, whirling my head around, rolling my leg involuntary, doing this little judo kick. Carl was standing there, his arms crossed. He wasn't even looking at me. He was staring at the sprinkler system. I'm sorry, he said, but he actually didn't seem all that sorry. It felt like this had been a test to see how badly I could be scared. I had pegged Carl as a cop, but now I reconsidered. He seemed like one of those faceless suits and glasses who tracked down E.T. He was the bad guy in the '80s movie. You scared the shit out of me, I told him. The door was open, he said. I was just checking it out. This is where I'm going to live, I said. Yes, for now, he said. Miss Roberts has informed you of the situation? I stared at him because it felt good to make him work for it. The children, he said finally, their situation, they catch on fire? I said, I know. May I ask you something, Miss Baker? What is it? I asked. Do you have any experience with child care? Do you have a medical training? Do you have a degree in childhood psychology? I can take care of two kids, I told him. I'm not trying to be rude, for instance. Do you know CPR? Jesus, Carl. Yes, I know CPR, I said. I have a certificate even. I'm certified. I can bring the kids back to life. 2 years ago, an old lady had died in the produce section while I knelt over her waiting for an ambulance. After that, the owner of the store made everyone get trained in CPR and first aid. Okay, that's good, he said, smiling. I took a class in fire safety too, I said. I know how to use a fire extinguisher. On a child, he asked. Even there, if they're on fire, I told him. He walked over to the kitchen and opened the door to what I thought was a pantry, and said it was filled top to bottom with gleaming red fire extinguishers. Well then, I guess, you'll be fine. Carl, I said. Yes, he replied. Do you think I came up with this idea? Do you think I scammed Madison into giving me the job taking care of these weird fucking children? No, not at all. I think Senator Roberts and Mrs. Roberts a have been placed in an unusual situation. I think they are doing the best that they can. They are trying to be responsible and simply a part of the larger desire to help these children. But I do not think this is correct response. I think this is going to be a disaster. They're just kids, I said. I'm here to assist in any way that I can, he told me. Think of someone who can help you when you run into unforeseen problems. Just then, Madison appeared in the doorway. Don't you love it? She asked me. The polka dots? Carl somehow found a way to stand even straighter than he had been, like his bones locked into some unknown posture that not even soldiers could achieve. I nodded, looking around the house. Carl, I said, what do you think of the polka dots? Do you love it? He smiled. It's very appropriate for children, he finally said. Very festive. Carl likes it, I said to Madison. We need to get you some clothes, Madison said to me. Let's go shopping. Sounds good. I said, and she linked arms with me. and we left Carl standing there like it was his birthday, and not one person who dreamed of coming to his party. He creeps me out a little, Madison, I told her, as we walked to the garage. I guess that's kind of his job, she replied. Like he makes people uncomfortable or super comfortable based on the situation. I don't think he likes me, I said. Well, I'm not sure that he even likes me, she told me. Who cares? We drove in Madison's BMW to Nashville, to a mall, where one of the anchors was a Billings department store. The B on the building, all huge and fancy in golden letters. She reached into her purse and produced a gold credit card from the store, something her father must have given to her. Everything is free here, she said, so get what you want. There wasn't much that I wanted. Everything was so delicate and sparkly. I tried a pair of satin pants and wanted to kill myself, Madison, I said. I'm taking care of kids. I'm a nanny. I don't need stuff for dinner parties. You never know what you might need, she said. She picked out a bright green dress, strapless, and held it to me like I was a doll that she was going to dress. I don't have boobs to hold that dress up, I said. I had no boobs at all, which I appreciated when I was growing up, and then in high school I got sad about it, and then I stopped caring about again. I'm buying it for you, she said. One fancy thing. That's it. Now you can get whatever you want. I bought 6 pairs of pretty amazing Calvin Klein jeans in various states of dressing, and a bunch of t-shirts, stuff that looked comfortable without being trashy. Stuff that if caught on fire it wouldn't be the end of the world. I bought some tracksuits that were meant for either much older or much younger people, but I love them. Green and silver rayon, like I was an assassin. I bought 4 pairs of Chuck Taylors and a really expensive pair of Nike basketball shoes. I got some underwear and some bras, a bathing suit like an Olympic athlete wore, and a cool bucket that hat to keep the sun out of my eyes. I felt like some mermaid who had suddenly grown legs and now living among the humans. Madison found some dude with slick back hair who was wearing a crummy suit to follow us around, and we weighed him down with stuff. When we couldn't hold it any longer, when he couldn't hold it any longer, he took it back to the register and added it to the total. When I wasn't looking, Madison picked out some heels and pantsuits and even got some pretty sexy lingerie. I didn't stop her. I'd take everything. She bought me some perfume called Sense and Stability that was in the bottle that looked so much like a dick that I thought it was a joke. When we were done, she sent me into the mall to the food court because I think she didn't want me to see how much it all cost. Now, let's see here. Not that I would have cared, or maybe I would have. Madison, so tall and perfect, handing him that gold card, me in my dirty clothes like some orphan. I guess I never know how it felt being because not too long after Madison was standing there, all the clothes nearly stuffed into the trunk of her BMW, ready to take me back to the new home. Tell me about Jasper, I asked her, turning off the Emmy Lau Harris CD that was making me crazy, her voice too good to concentrate. What do you want me to tell you about him? She replied. She was barely touching the steering wheel, the car just doing whatever she wanted, based solely off her desire. What's he like? I asked. No, I mean, I guess I want to know if you love him. You think I don't love my husband? She said, smiling. Well, you do? I asked, genuinely curious. I guess I love him, she finally said. He's the perfect man for me because he's responsible. He treats me like an equal, and he's got his own business, and he lets me do whatever I want. But what's he like? What do you like about him on a personal level? I asked, not willing to give up. I thought about my mom's boyfriend, thousands of them, and how each one had been a mystery to me. Why my mom thought and he added anything to her life. I thought about my own boyfriends, the way I mostly wanted them to just be in the same room with me, the way I didn't expect anything from them. I thought about Senator Roberts, the picture of him I'd seen made him look handsome enough, silver hair and ice blue eyes, but old enough that I would have left him for dead. He's insane. He's not Southern in the way that makes you embarrassed. You know, a Vanderbilt. There were a boy who wore pastel shorts and boat shoes. They were sea suckers, like they were racist lawyers from the 40s. I hated them. Like, no, I hated them. They seemed like children, but they already looked like middle-aged men. I called them mint julep boys, like they missed the old South because even if there was a horrible racism, it was worth it if it meant that they could be important by default. It sounded like you were just describing your brothers, I said. Madison sometimes wrote about them, all of the bankers or CEOs. She always said that nothing she did was ever treated as her parents with the same enthusiasm as her brothers' accomplishments, even though her brothers were functioning alcoholics, all divorced and remarried. Yeah, like my brother Mint Jalep boys, like they would drink a mint julep on a regular day and they wouldn't think it was weird. I didn't know I'm rambling. I'm not talking about Jasper. I don't know how to describe him. He's quite a principled, principled, and he's intense. He understands people that make him slightly impatient with them. He's like they're too stupid to protect themselves, so he has to do it for them. He's not funny, but he has a good sense of humor. Why did you marry him? I asked. Because he wanted, mm, because he wanted to marry me, she said. He wanted me, and he was old and experienced, and I like that he's already fucked up with the hierarchy and leaving his family. I like that he was flawed, but now principled. I guess that's was important to me. I'm scared to meet him, I admitted. I'm a little scared for you to meet him, she said. I hope you don't hate him. I don't, uh, I don't, I don't say anything because I'm pretty sure that just on principle I was going to hate him. I don't like men all that much, found them tiring, but I'm willing to give him a chance. I was open to new things, I guess, if it meant living in that house. I could handle talking to a senator every once in a while. I mean, his job requires him to serve my interests, since I was a resident of his state. I didn't vote, but have, he didn't have to know that. While Madison went to pick up Timothy from daycare, I showered and changed into my new clothes, leaving my old ratty stuff in the hamper that I knew would be sprinted away when I wasn't looking. My clothes laundered and folded, and then returned, and maybe even in a ribbon tied around them. I put on some of the perfume Madison had picked out for me, which smelled like old silver and honeysuckle. When I finally went downstairs, I saw Timothy standing there, no sign of any adults. "Where's your mom?" I asked. He simply turned away and started walking down the hallway. I followed him, and we ended up in his room, which I had not seen earlier that day. His bed was bigger than any bed I've ever owned, so fluffy that I wondered how he didn't suffocate instantly when he got into it. "So is this your room?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Do you want to see my stuffed animals?" "I mean, I guess," I said. "Sure." There was a big chest, and some effort was lifted the lid, and then, like clowns from a VW bug, out came so many stuffed animals that I felt like I dropped acid. Timothy pulled out a red fox with a bow tie. "This is Jeffrey," he said, no emotion on his face. "Hello, Jeffrey," I said. He pulled out an elephant with a thick pair of black eyeglasses. "This is Bartholomew." "Oh, okay. Hi, Bartholomew." He pulled out a frog with a crown on it, said, "And this is Calvin," he said, presenting him to me. "Are you sure his name is not Froggy?" I asked. "It's Calvin," he said. "Well, geez, hey, Calvin." There was a teddy bear with a pink dress on. "This is Emily," he said. "Are those from the TV show or something?" I asked, trying to desperately to understand his boy. "No, they're just for me." "What do you do with them?" I asked. "I line them up." "Is that it? You line them up?" Then I picked up the best one up, he said. When I was 6 years old, I used my birthday money to buy this giant box filled with action figures for boys at a yard sale. Barbies were too expensive, and so I played with these guys, all decked out in camo, interesting facial hair. I just made them stand-ins for people in my town, and I worked my way enough through imaginary sense about life. I wish I had my figure was a doll of the fawns from Happy Days. His plastic hands formed into thumbs up signs, and my mom was this bearded dude with muscles in denim vest and shorts. One time I was playing in my room and my mom's doll said, "Lil, the mayor's cat is missing." And then my doll said, sorry, turn the page. "Come on, Mom, the Breaker Detective Agency is on it." And I heard my mom actual voice say, "What are you doing?" I looked up and my mom was standing in the doorway staring at me. "The mayor's cat is missing," I said, confused. "Is that supposed to be you?" she asked, pointing to the fawns. I nodded. "And that's me," she said, pointing to the big Josh doll. I nodded again, but I feel like maybe I'm done something wrong. My mom looked at me with this strange expression, and now thinking back, I feel like this was the exact moment when she realized that I wasn't her. I was mastery at her, and maybe always would be. I could see the flash in her eyes, and she said, kind of dumbfounded, "God, Lil, what is that head?" And she walked off, and I felt like a freak, even though I was doing pretending was what all kids did. But my mom had no presenting. I think she thought it was stupid, was a kind of weakness. From that point on, I guess I sort of realized that my imagination, which made life tolerable, needed to be kept a secret for the rest of the world. But if you kept something hidden away all tied up, it's hard to summon it when you really need it. And so I maybe understood Timothy a little, or maybe I was jealous of him. "Can I play too?" I asked. He nodded, and I produced 12 more stuffed animals, lining them up along the floor. "Okay," so I picked the best one. I asked. "It has to be the best one," he said. "There was a panda bear with the little guitar on it paw. I think this one." Timothy's eyes was a flash of recognition, as if the 17th century ghost who lived inside him had suddenly awakened. "That's Bruce," he said, and I laughed a little at the same time, so ridiculous for a stuffed animal. "Is that the best one?" I asked. He looked at the others, took his time. Finally, he said, "Today, Bruce is the best one." He handed the panda over to me, and I hugged it. I smelled so good, so clean. When I held Bruce, Timothy gathered up the other stuffed animals and put them away. He seemed pleased. I felt like I passed the test. Timothy touched my head, and I resisted the urge to swat his hand away. "You're good," he said, and he smiled a little. Just then, Madison showed up. "Oh, you two playing?" she asked. "Kind of," I said. "Did you pick Bruce?" she asked. "I did. He's the best one," I told her. "The best one today," Timothy clarified. "Daddy's home," Madison said suddenly, and then Timothy started to vibrate with, what, happiness, excitement, fear? "Daddy," he said, and now smiling, and stumbled out of the room. "Jasper's here," Madison said to me. "Yikes," I said, "okay." I walked as close to Madison as I could without it bearing a three-legged race. We found Timothy lifted into the air by Senator Roberts. There was a genuine happiness on this man's face, and the softened me temporarily, which was exactly what I needed to get through this moment. "Daddy's here," Timothy said, and I could see the pride radiating off the tiny boy's body. "I'm here," Jasper said, not smiling but not frowning. Senator Roberts was tall, just enough to make him seem important. His hair was silver, not gray, like he was the emperor of some distant ice planet. And his eyes were so blue, just beautiful. He was a handsome man. He wore a beige suit that fit him perfectly, a little blue tie with silver donkey tie clip. He looked like a little wary, like being important was a Herculean task. If any aspect of his uh, appearance had been off by even a few degrees, he would have seemed evil. But he had the ratio perfect. I wouldn't have married him even with his money, but I understand why Madison would. "Honey," Madison said once, "Timothy has received his father's full attention. This is Lillian." He kept holding on to Timothy, who had hidden his face against Jasper's chest. "Hello, Lillian," he said. "Senator Roberts," I said. "Oh, Jasper, please." he said, though he looked pleased at the formality. "It's nice to meet you, Jasper," I said then. "You are almost mystical in this house," he said, his voice so measured, so hypnotic, the right amount of southern accent. It wasn't foghorn leghorn, and it wasn't Newcaster in Atlanta. It was the lyrical and honeyed and electric natural natural. It sounded nice. Madison thinks the world of you, he continued. "Oh, okay," I said, embraced. What would Madison have told him? Did he know about the fact that I'd kept Madison from being kicked out of the fancy boarding school? Was it better or worse if she told him? "We are so happy to have you here," he said. He didn't blink. I didn't know if this was something necessary for a politician, if blinking was a sign of weakness or something. As a result, I began blinking so much that I started crying. "I'm happy to be here," I finally said. I was in a play, and I finally remembered my next line. "Dinner," Jasper then said, not to anyone in particular, like a magic spell. I knew that when he walked into the dining room, there would be food that had not been there before Jasper said the single word. "Yes," Madison said. "Are you hungry?" "I am," he said, still not smiling. Maybe he was thinking about his fire children. Maybe he was thinking about me, the strange woman taking up his space in his house. Or maybe he was just thinking about steps necessary for him to become the president. The point was, I don't know what he was thinking and what made me nervous. "Are you hungry, Lillian?" Madison asked, and I wondered what would happen if I said no. Sometimes I didn't eat dinner until 1 or 2 in the morning. It was 6 o'clock in the evening. If I said no, would everyone go to their room and wait until I was ready? It wasn't worth finding out. I actually pretty damn hungry. "Yeah, I'm hungry too," I finally said, and we all walked into the dining room. I marveled at how easily I had been absorbed into the rhythm of this family. It didn't feel natural, but it didn't feel like I was expecting all my energy trying to make it work expending all my energy trying to make it work. I made it me think that wealth, as of course I already knew without first-hand experience, could normalize just about anything. It made me think about all those children who were coming over the horizon like twin suits would not do a thing to this place, that they would be purified. I didn't think about it then, but later I remembered that these kids had already been in this very house and called it home, but had been expelled. I didn't know what the lesson was. I didn't think about it. After dinner, which Mary had prepared, angel-haired pasta with olive oil and lemon chicken breaded that cracked open like a Golide icy cold wine, and some kind of spongy cake spiked with alcohol. We all went outside the sun and sipped our perfect evening. Madison wanted to show me something, and we walked through the grass, which, honest to God, squeaked under my feet until we reached the basketball court. The surface shiny oxy asphalt, and the lines painted in sparkling white regulations. Madison flicked a switch, the lights cracked to life and illuminated the court. "Oh my gosh," I said, unable to really take it in. "It used to be boring tennis courts," Madison said, "but I had it converted." "It's beautiful," I said, honestly. "It's more impressive than the mansion." "Basketball isn't really a refined pastime," Madison said, frowning. "No one ever wants to play." "I do," I said. "I want to play." Jasper, as if this had all been planned in advance, took Timothy by the hand and led him to the modest seats of the bleachers. Madison went to a waterproof chest and produced a ball that looked like it had never been bounced. She flicked a pass to me, and I caught it and dribbled it 3 times and sent it up a lazy jumper that, thank God, fell right through the hoop with that sexy sound that nudged me when you hit it just right. If I missed that shot, I think I would have cried. Madison caught the ball before it hit the ground, and then posted up against an imaginary defender, spun to her left, and executed an old-school hook shot that banged into the hoop. "Do you play a lot?" I asked. "If I had this court at my disposal, I'd sleep on top of the rim." "Not as much as I'd like. You know, it's boring just to shoot free throws. I miss 5-on-5. You can just play with your employees." Couldn't just get your employees to play?" I asked. Why did you need a guard? Why do you need a gardener? I wondered. Why not hire the Washington Generals to live in the green guest house? "They wouldn't be able to hang with me," she said. She wasn't being arrogant. It was probably true. Iron Mountain had won state in her junior and senior year, and she'd been all state both times. She played at Vanderbilt. She hadn't started, but I knew how good you had to be to ride to the bench on SEC team, and I knew that she was happy to have me here. I'd been all-state my senior year, though it was mostly because our team was so crappy that I had to do everything on my own, which drove my stats through the roof. We didn't even make it out of the region. I could never decide if I was happy or sad that my high school and Iron Mountain were in different classes, that I never got a chance to drive on Madison and see what she'd do to stop me. But we didn't play one-on-one that night. We just shot, hypothesized by the sound of the ball smacking against the asphalt. I felt my muscles loosen. I found my rhythm. I couldn't miss, and Madison even stepped back and hit three after three. When I was a kid, I'd been so angry that I was a girl and drunk, but couldn't dunk, but this was so much better. You found your spot, lined it up, and knocked it down. The rim had a nice amount of play. It it a playground assist, and we shot for about 45 minutes. The sun was going down, and Timothy shouted when Firefly started blinking around us. I drove to the bracket and hit my layup, and then Madison put the ball away. Timothy held the hand in front of him, awkwardly trying to catch a firefly, and Jasper gently snatched one out of the air and let it rest on his open palm. We all gathered around him and watched as the bug seemed to breathe, the glow embracing from its inside it once, twice, and then it flew away. "Bath time," Madison said, and I thought she meant me, but then I saw Timothy nod and started walking to the mansion. Madison took her hands in her, and then Jasper touched my right elbow, and I froze. "I appreciate what you're doing for us," he said. "It's not a big deal," I said. I had no idea what I was doing until I knew how hard it was going to be. I didn't want his gratitude. "My children," he said, but they seemed to let the thought of drift away. "I've always tried to be a good man," he finally said, finding a new way to say what he wanted, "but I haven't always been successful. Madison has helped me find the way some true. I'm lucky to have her." "Okay," I said. "I made too many mistakes with my kids, with Roland and Bessie. I let them get away from me. I lost sight of them, and that's my fault. Whatever happens while they're here, Jane, it's still my fault. I hope you understand. I'm trying to make it right." He looked like everything slightly pained him, and I wasn't sure how to make it easy for him. I didn't actually want it to be easy for him. "I know this is asking a lot from you," Jasper said. "I know you're only doing this because you care for Madison, but I don't. But I want you to know that how much it means to me to have you here. That he wasn't I understand that he wasn't hitting on me. I could tell he wasn't interested in me romantically, and he calmed me. Madison said that someday you might be president," I said. Jasper got a funny look on his face, and Madison assumed him more often than not. "Well," he said, "it's a possibility, yes." "President Jasper Roberts," I offered. "Well, not any time soon. There are more important things to do right now," he said. He simply started walking to the house, and I let him go 20 yards away before I followed him. I watched him, his posture slightly crooked. He left his hand. No idea how anything in his life had fallen out the way it had. I left the same.